have a question about
Yeah, go ahead.
um, all those different applications that they were using. Do we get like a week on each of those, or are some more complicated? We need more time. It just seems like they learn so much in a short amount of time.
Oh no, the group projects, you get a bunch of weeks. I want to say you get like 5 weeks for the group project, something like that in the part-time program. So you get a decent amount. Um, Typically finishing on time isn't the challenge is just paring down the scope of the project. If you were listening to those presentations, I think one of the groups was saying that they had ambitions for a lot of other things, and when they realized that their MVP would take X long, they had to limit exactly what they wanted to put in their application because they're strapped for time. Typically, people are not very good, and this happens on the job as well. People will typically think of a really great idea and have all these features, right? And then realize and think is going to take, I'm just going to make up some numbers here. Take 10 weeks, but in reality, that full scope might take 20, 25 weeks. So what ultimately ends up happening is paring down the scope becomes a really, really important thing, depending on what kind of work methodology your like team follows, whether it's like agile or waterfall or whatever, sprints or light jogs or 1 week sprints or 2 week sprints or however your company does it, and every company is a little different. Um, but yeah, typically parsing down the scope of an application is always a problem. And typically, what noobs do typically is their scope is too big and they want to do all these things and then start implementing, and you realize two things. One, whoa, this is a huge undertaking. And two, when you start actually building it out, you start running into problems that you didn't think were going to be problems and spending a lot of time you had not accounted for. Make sense?
Customers love it when you give a projection and it takes double or triple the amount of
Joe's being very sarcastic. That is not true. They hate it, especially because a lot of the time, oh, not a lot of the time, almost exclusively, it's always more money, right? And they really love that. So for the group project, you get, I want to say like, yeah, like 5 weeks in the evening and weekend program, and then the individual project, you get a little bit less, but you still get, I want to say 3.5 weeks, something like that. So you get a decent amount. You could even look ahead, actually.
I could say like just one thing. It's kind of like it's not like about the projects themselves necessarily, but I feel like when you're dealing with engineers or really technical people, and I'm not in this category. But you have like kind of two ends of the spectrum. You have those that are really, really sharp, but cannot talk to people at all. And then you have people that are like somewhere in the middle that have both skills that can talk to people that know a fair amount. You rarely have somebody that is good at both of those things from my experience. Like I've worked with a few of them and they're all stars. So if you're not somebody who's ultra technical, because those people that are like amazingly technical but can't talk to people, that's fine because everybody will be like, you know what? Mark he's a freaking genius, but if you put him in front of customers, he's gonna bore him to tears. Like, so we're just gonna lock him in a room. He's gonna do all the work, and then we'll have somebody cool translate all of that. If you're not that person, be good at presenting. And I feel like it's a lot easier to get good at presenting and explaining what's going on and having a good relationship with customers than it is to be a technical freaking genius, like at least from in my opinion. So those are all things that you can work on. So if you're not like a good presenter, you don't like being in front of customers, and you might have to be in front of customers at some point for your role, rehearse your presentations as much as possible. That's the one thing I would say because nothing is worse. And I've done it before accidentally. I was like, oh yeah, this dude is super smart. Let's put him in here. And he gives a presentation. I'm like, oh shit, we really messed up here. And I'm like, all right, look, guys, let's tone it back here, take a quick break, and like get him off the stage. And then somebody else has to take over because that is a quick and easy way to really lose your audience or, could kill the confidence in a deal, even if that person is super, super good. So
So I think that was true for a really long time, and it's still true today. But I think, and this is an unintended consequence of all the social media, the cat's out of the bag. people know tech is awesome. People know how much it pays. People know the quality and live it can provide for you. So I think a lot more, and I'm going to say these words loosely, a lot more normal people are going into CS than there
Mhm.
used to be in the past. So that division is in the future, I think won't be a start.
Yeah, you might be right. There's definitely
Yeah.
some young people at my company too that have both skills, and I'm like,
Yeah. So
uh,
they
but there's some people that are terrible, man.
there was too many like life in the day of a software engineers on TikTok, and now people are like, wait, how much they get paid? And they do
Yeah, yeah, it's
what? No,
true.
no, no,
Yeah.
I can do that. I can do that. So I think it's a good thing. I think the more engineers, the more people that can code, the more people that can build things, the better. We can get people to, man, I need more robot. I need robots to like do all my chores. I don't like doing laundry. I don't like cooking. You know what they need? Like a robot powered shower that showers you. Kind of like, have you seen those for dogs? There'll be like these giant cases. They'll be at like dog parks sometimes. I don't know if you guys seen this. You put your dog in there, you press some buttons, and it washes your dog for you. And then it comes out all like blow dried and everything, conditioned. I don't know if you guys seen that. I'm gonna send you guys a link if I find one on
I
YouTube.
have not seen that, but if you're talking about that for humans, I'm like, dude, that's like one of the easiest things. I'm like, there's a billion other things I want to automate. Showering is like one of the few times I'm like, thank God, I don't have to do anything right now.
No, you haven't seen the meme of the male shower. It's 20 minutes, but 19 of those minutes are just contemplating life with the water just hitting in
Yeah,
front of you.
yeah. That's
And then the
Yeah.
other
exactly.
minute is just showering. That is so real.
You
Yeah,
you
dude.
want you want a whole body bidet. That's what you want, huh?
Yeah, pretty much. Go ahead, Art. Sorry, dude. Question. This is a legitimate question. And we're over here BSing around.
Yeah, I wouldn't call this legitimate, but it was revealed on Saturday that you work for Amazon. Can
I
you
work
talk
for, yeah.
can you talk a little bit about what you do there? Like, do you enjoy it? Like, just a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so what I do is I do a lot of info work for, and there's only so much I can say because I'm on the DoD side. So what happens is a lot of these big uh, government agencies need help, like developing applications in the cloud for X reason, right? The reason can be numerous. It could be they don't have the expertise in house. They could be they only need help migrating some of the applications to the cloud. It could be a whole. It could be just like a completely like it could be they could be using mainframes and they don't want to use mainframes. They want to decommission them. So they're moving everything to serverless, but that's a completely entirely different thing. Like you pretty much need to rebuild the application and make sure it works on the cloud and everything is like zero trust and super secure and all that. So I help with that. And it's mostly DevOpsy infra work and cloud work. So that's most of the stuff that I do. Do I like working there? I get that question a lot. Is uh, typically Amazon and AWS gets a bad rap because they work you kind of hard, and they do work you kind of hard. But I have found that retail, like if you're working for any of the verticals for like Amazon.com, right? Those then tend to be very stressful. But on the AWS side is a little bit more relaxed. And when you're working on big like federal contracts, it tends to be a little slower, just because like permissions and security and they always need some kind of form filled out and you need to be vetted. So it tends to be a little, I don't want to say a little, yeah, a little more relaxed because it's not as intense. But sometimes like if you need to deliver something by X date because they're doing some kind of testing on X date, then it has to be done. So I know some of my answers are a little vague, but some of the stuff I probably can't go into it because this video is being recorded and it's going to be posted on YouTube. But yeah, I enjoy it. I really like it. I think it's really interesting and I think working for a really big company, you get to see a lot of different code bases and you get to see a lot how a lot of people build applications. And I think you learn a lot, but you also realize how everything's just so different. Like what worked for like customer B is not going to work for customer A or C, and they all running different things. Like maybe tech stacks are somewhat similar, but the way that they're running them, sometimes they're running, in containers, sometimes they're not. Sometimes half the stuff is on-prem and half of it is cloud. Sometimes they got multi-cloud, they're running GCP and they're running AWS. You're like, how the heck does this stuff work? So you have like some people from AWS and some people from Google Cloud, but once like an API call goes into Google, then we lose visibility of it, right? So then you need someone on that side to kind of figure out what's happening if something broke on that end. So just when you get to deck, and all of you, I'm sure will if you want to, you come to ask yourself a big question of like, I can't believe anything works ever for anything, because it seems like everything's always on fire.
Thank you.
That was kind of the long of it. Hey, you can ask all your teachers though. All your teachers might be able to give you a little bit more information. Although if you talk to Jordan and you talk to anybody that works for like a prop trading firm, all the prop trading firms are kind of the same in the sense that they think they have, or they might, I don't know, they make a lot of money, so maybe they do have some secret sauce, right? So you'll come to realize that people like big cloud companies like Azure and Microsoft and AWS and GCP think, oh, there's 90+% of workloads are still on-prem. There's a lot of room for growth. And there is a lot of room for growth, but when you get into like really niche things like trading and stuff like that, like some of their stuff's never going to go to the cloud. Why? Because they're afraid that someone will steal their secret sauce. Right. So if you go to like DRW or some of those prop trading firms, they manage their own data centers, right? None of that stuff or those workloads or that data is ever seeing the cloud for proprietary reasons. I don't know. You're going to have to ask them. Same thing goes for like government agencies when they run their own data centers or their own cloud partitions or whatever the case may be.
Random question. The breakout rooms aren't recorded, right?
I don't think so, no. But right now you're learning how to write code, and then you realize that's really only a very small part of it. When you get to like really big applications, you actually don't even write. I mean, you write some of the code, but you write a lot of the infra that deploys the code and writes the code for you. Right. So a lot of the times, most of the stuff that I write a lot of the times is called CDK for AWS. And that stuff will build out the entire infra. And if I have like Lambda functions or something, that code will be nested in the same repo. And then I just deploy everything and it'll build out my entire infrastructure of AWS. It'll launch all my Lambdas. It'll launch my applications from mess that I uploaded to S3. It'll pull them, it'll build them, it'll test them, it'll deploy everything. And all of a sudden I have everything working. Right. So it's not only the code, it's and if you hear the words DevOps, right, that's a lot of the infra that goes into deploying applications, right? That's his whole ball of wax. And Jordan's a DevOps engineer, so he'll know more about it than I do when it comes to like smaller stuff. But once you get to the really big applications that run on AWS, I probably have a little bit more experience with that. But it's really incredible how all that stuff works, honestly. So you're writing code and building small applications, but ultimately you're going to have to also write quote unquote code, right? This is going to sound weird, but you're going to also write code that your code runs on. If that makes sense. Right. So it'll be something like this. Like, how you have your application locally, or you're running like a little hangman or whatever locally. Eventually you're going to run things locally. You're going to launch a front end, you're going to launch a back end, and you're going to run your application locally. But ultimately, let's say the application was like a real application, to say for a personal project or a group project, you're going to Dockerize it, and then you're going to throw it on an EC2. You could also even take it a step further and build out the infrastructure that, hey, anytime I push a change to GitHub, a pipeline runs, right? That not only tests my application, right? It tests statically, it tests all the code, make sure there's no vulnerabilities, but then it launches it to dev, right? And then it tests it there, make sure everything's running, right? And then maybe you have a manual approval to production, and that's when real users see it, right? You could still build all of that. So when you say, oh, you built an application, that's a very small part of the entire pipeline you're ultimately going to have to build, right? Oh, I will give you an example actually on a project that I worked that was not for the government. I worked on a project with a big movie chain, and they sold a bunch of stuff, but they sold tickets for like concerts and movie show times. It was a movie theater chain. But one of the things that they had trouble with is when they had like a special release for like, I'm sorry if I butcher this, but the famous Korean band PTK or BTS, something like that. I don't know. I guess Korean pop. K-pop. I don't know. But they had not built out their infrastructure, and that's why we were working with them to build out the entire infrastructure. So when they had like a special sale, all their servers would crash, and no one would be able to buy tickets, right? And their stopgap measure, believe it or not, was having extra engineers on staff at like 6 p.m. Central when they were launching this, like the new tickets or whatever, and having them manually provision more servers to handle the load. I mean, this is a multi-billion-dollar company, and that was still their method because they hadn't built out the infrastructure that would do that for them. You know, and you're like, oh wow, this company that makes so much money, you guys don't have that. You guys remember a while ago, like CrowdStrike had that big error in all the computers. What that
Such
was,
a
yeah, what that was is they didn't have a canary deployment, so they just rolled it out and just assumed it'd be cool.
blue screened everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're like, wait, what? That's a multi-billion-dollar company. They didn't have a right CI/CD pipeline to test that. What really should have happened is they would have sent the patch out to maybe a very small, like, 5% of the machines and checked if everything was good. And they could have, and there's a bunch of different, I'm not going to get into the different ways to do it, right? But if that was good, they could have then rolled it out to all of it or progressively rolled out to 10, to 15, to 20, to 25, to 30, make sure everything's still good. We're still good. We're still good. And then once it was 99, 100, do a complete cutoff of the old one, and then it would have been fine. But they didn't even do that. Because had they done, or any version of that, that wouldn't have happened. Like, why did that happen? They could have just done a rollback and it would have been fine.
That was a 6 hour hangover spent in the DC airport.
You know what I mean? They just
That's what
like,
it turned into for me. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, my brother got a rejection email. He applied to a tech job and he got an email that said, "Dear applicant," and it was just a template string that wasn't, like, the intern messed up the template string. It said, "Applicant name, thank you for applying to, job opening, whatever, whatever." I can take a screenshot, send it to you guys. And then it says whatever. So that's literally a cookie cutter email that they sent, and something's broken in their automatic rejection pipeline, right? Right, where they're not pulling the right name from their application and inputting the job title that they applied for, right? Like, we all know we get automatically rejected when we get some of those, but it's like, it's bad form for a company just to do that, Like, 'cause before, at least there's the illusion that maybe they looked at my resume. Nah, nah, you didn't. You just, you know. Anyway, you one day you'll get one of those too, and you'll be on your way. All right, sorry, that was super long-winded. I hope I answered everyone's questions. Questions about Saturday. You guys did lambdas and list comprehension.
Gavin, I kind of got the impression that lambdas are good to know, but they're not really used practically. So you have like a theory of lambdas, but they're not actually used in real practice. Do you have that same sense?
They are used, but anytime that they're used, you can just use a regular function for now. Eventually, you'll start to get kind of an intuitive feel of when is the right time to use them. But again, it's just, even though you may not use it, it's really important to just be exposed to it and know that it exists, believe it or not. Because sometimes you'll be like writing something or you'll be looking for a solution and you're like, wait, I've seen this pattern before. I don't know what it's called, but I know that people have done this, right? So then you go looking for it, right? And that really helps you solve some of the problems that you have. Being exposed to what's available, what's possible in a programming language, what can be done, what's been done before, it's really helpful. So yeah, you're probably not going to use them all the time, especially early on. But one day maybe you're reading code or you're seeing something that these are used, right? And that might kind of spark something in your mind to say, hey, this is the right answer here. What a lot of people don't know, and I'll give you somewhat of an esoteric example, but like a lambda, like an anonymous lambda function, can be the value pair inside of a dictionary. So if you had a series of functions that you wanted to trigger based on just on a key pair, on a specific key of a dictionary that didn't change across an application, right? You just import the specific file with the dictionary of lambdas into every single file and then just launch them from there. That'd be a really clean way to do it, right? Because if you have to alter the functionality of those lambdas, you just go to one file, change it there, and that change would propagate across your entire application. So if you don't know they exist and you see that when you're reading through an application, you're going to be like, what the heck is this? Like, I don't even know what to make of this. But if you know it exists, you're like, oh, okay, these are, you know, anonymous functions that I can use. Okay, let me see where this goes. And then you actually have at least a foothold into trying to understand what's happening. I'll give you kind of a weird example sometimes. Sometimes I'll give technical assessments and they won't know how to split a string into a list. And I'll be like, oh, dot split. I'll give it to them. I'll be like, oh, dot split, and then pass in the delimiter. You know what I mean? And sometimes, believe it or not, students would be like, oh, I've never seen that before. That's not what I want to hear on this side. If you haven't seen that before, it means you haven't looked at any code at all. You've never seen split, dot split. And that's crazy, for lack of a better word, right? That means you never manipulated a string. That's like impossible to do in programming, pretty much. Good questions, Art. Any other questions? No, no questions about Saturday? What was your, it was anagrams to character count, stock picker. Let me just go through these, make sure that you guys, make sure that I feel confident that you guys know there
Yeah,
isn't anything
if
else.
we have time and you can go over them, I would love that, um but up to everybody else too.
Let's do a speed run of these before we
Yeah.
get started, actually. I'm not going to do them, but I'll walk you through how I would try to solve them. Alrighty. So for Saturday, this was anagrams too. This time you're going to check the word against a list of other words. The goal is this exercise to return a new list of all the anagrams from the provided list. So what is this challenge asking you to do? Just very simple question, team. Right? What is this challenge asking you to do? This is from Saturday, so you should have already looked at this.
Yeah, it's taking a word and it's taking a word and a list and it's comparing all the elements within that list to that word to see if it those elements are an anagram for that word, and
Or
it's
an ana
returning it.
and it's
And,
returning the list of anagrams, right?
right.
Okay, how did you all solve this? How about let's go with the easiest way to solve this? What's the easiest way to solve this?
Oh, with a dictionary?
That's not the easiest way to solve this. That's the most optimal way to solve this. But that's not uh
Using sorted.
yeah. If you use a Python sorted or sort, right, split that sort, and you check salt here, you just sort this letter and you sort every single one of these letters. And if they match, you push the original one into a result list, return the result list, right? That's not the most optimal way to do it. but that is the easiest way to do that. Straightforward, right? I know that this is coming in. I'm literally doing a sorted string equals sorted and then joining them, I believe is what the methods are in Python, right? And then I have my sorted word. I'm going to iterate over this, and I'm going to have a results equals empty list. Then I'm going to iterate over this, right? And in my iteration, I just sort these two and check them. Sort them before you check them. And if they match the tech, you append to your result list and you end up with the sorted list. That's how you solve that. What would be the most optimal way to solve this? Does anyone know by chance? If you don't know, that's okay. If you solved it the other way, that's how I'd expect you to solve it. I think you're muted, Cisco, or maybe I can't hear you.
Would it be using a comprehension
Uh,
expression or comprehension form?
hmm, that wouldn't be that different than just sorting it, depending on how you did it, right? So we solved anagrams one. What's the optimal solution for anagrams one?
Or just using a for loop
And
and a empty list,
The dictionary, comparing items in a dictionary.
or yeah,
you're
empty
comparing
dictionary.
the letters and the letter counts, right? So,
Hmm.
and actually, I'm pretty sure Python has a built-in. You can check me on this. This was going to be passed in your function. How just off the top of my head, how I would do this. I could call it anagrams too. Anagrams too. Why not? And you're getting some word and then word list of some type,
Hmm.
right? You could just say this is just letters, right? What are the
Yep.
letters? And I think Python lets you put everything into I think if you wrap it in dict, check me on this. I'm not gonna run it, but dict will split up that word into just a dictionary, like s equals one, a equals one.
Hmm.
It'll do it automatically. I'm not quite sure if it's a library that you have to import, so check on that. Right. So you have it, and then it's just a simple forward in words or word list, right? And then what do you do here? What could you do?
You can do if word is not in, well, yeah, if word is not in letters.
Well, letters aren't words. It's just this broken up.
Okay.
Hey, how'd you solve the anagrams one? This is just a bigger problem of anagrams one, right? That's what they call it, anagrams two.
Oh, for word and wordless, you want to, so if word equals the source word or the word, for in your case.
But they're not in order though.
Okay, well, you want to do a if word equals they're not in order. Hmm. Then you can just do if they're not in order, then you want to sort them.
You're getting really close to what we did before. How's that any
Mhm.
different?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to give you two ways. So here, you could you could break up each word into the same dictionary, right? As letters. Is
Hmm.
there any way to check if they are equal? I don't know. It's up to you. I will leave it to you. Check. Because if the dictionary matches exactly, if all the keys are the same and all the values are the same, that word's an anagram, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can do that, or this is harder, but somewhat interesting. Just check against the letters. Check against the letters. Check against the dictionary letters, right? With another loop, with an inner loop. Check the counts, right? So there's two
Mm-hmm.
ways to do it there. Or you could just do it the way that we did it earlier. Sort the first word, and then sort every word on iteration and check against sorted initial word. If they match, push to results array or results list. There you go. There's three ways to do it that I can think of. I'm sure there might be one or two more. I don't know. Probably the most common way that you did is probably this way. If you already completed it, that's my guess, because it just makes the most sense. Alrighty. When I break you into individual, guys, when I break you into individual breakout rooms, and you have a question about something that we've covered already, feel free to ask. Right? Typically, I don't delete this until the end of class, so I'll still have my notes, and then we can go over it if you need to. Make sense? Or if you're working on something and I haven't gone to your room, be like, hey, Guillermo, can you pop into room 3? Or you can tell Saya, hey, Saya, can you pop into room 6? I have a question on this. Yes? Alrighty. That was anagrams too. Character count is here. Let's see what we got here. For each unique character that appears in the input string, report the number of occurrences. Report each character on its own line, descending order based on the number of occurrences. Each line should be formatted as follows. What do you notice about this challenge? It's pretty much what?
Dictionary.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, but it's pretty much just a smaller version of what challenge that you already completed.
The anagram challenge.
Yeah, it's just anagrams, right? It's just asking you to, hey, count the counts. And then it's telling you to print it like this. I'm not quite sure why. And this would be a weird thing to ask of you. Can anyone tell me why? It almost feels like they're asking you to print it this way, which is weird because dictionaries don't what? So this is kind of poorly written, actually. They're implying that dictionaries have a what?
Like an ascending or descending feature.
Yeah, that they have an order. Do dictionaries have an order?
Not unless you build it that way, I guess, right?
No, they don't have an order. The greatest thing, the thing about Hashmaster dictionaries is they're by nature, right, not ordered. Why? Because they have key value pairs. The key points to the value, right, and where it is in memory, right? There is no inherent ordering to a dictionary. So it doesn't matter if it's in this order or not. Because if you need order, you wouldn't use this data structure. That defeats the purpose of having a dictionary. Make sense? So as long as you know how to do this, that's good enough for now. So yeah, that's actually just an easier one of anagrams too, honestly. And then stock picker.
I had trouble with this one for sure.
This is actually a really popular technical challenge that you'll sometimes see in technical interviews. This is not an easy one. Um, what's the trick to this whole thing?
I think if you pay somebody to manage your money for you, then you don't have to ever build something like this then.
Yeah, but we're trying to code it out. Well, what is the challenge
Uh,
asking you to do?
Find the best data to buy and the best data to sell, and find the differences between them.
And to ensure that you have the biggest what?
The biggest gain.
Yeah, yeah, the biggest profit, the biggest delta, right? The biggest profit margin. Good. And you always have to buy before you sell, right? You always, what's the thing about buying stocks? You always buy low, you sell high, right? That's the trick to the whole thing. Easy peasy, right? How would you go about tackling this problem?
a lot of subtraction.
What do you mean?
Like going through the list stock picker there and then subtracting one position from another and seeing which is the lowest. Once you found the lowest value, then you can search for the highest value after that lowest value and keep
Oh,
subtracting.
yeah, but that's too big, too broad.
Uh,
You put like 10 steps in one. So it would be the first thing to look for. How do you, this is a legitimate question, like how do you go about tackling something like this?
We were messing with this for a while. Oh, Cisco, go ahead, because you were the mad scientist here.
Oh yeah. So the biggest thing is you commonly want to have a what we call a two-pointer technique, or having uh, a value where you can compare one value from the next, right? As you're going through a loop. So, like for instance, you take you you're going to go through and you're going to say, um, if the lower value is less than if the current lower value is less than the highest lower the higher value, you want to return uh, those values, right? Or
You
you
don't want
want
to
to
return, you want to
you,
what?
you want to flip flop them, or
No,
re,
you can't flip the numbers.
well, you want to reinitialize uh, those numbers. I so yeah, it's harder to explain because you're doing so. I guess I could share my screen and show you what I have, but yeah,
Go
it's
ahead, give it a shot, Cisco.
okay. Let me see here. Right screen. Is this one showing here?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So yeah. So you basically go through it, and you want to get the lowest. You want to have a variable. For mine, it was lowest value, and I currently just pulled the lowest value out of the prices and assigned it to it. So here it would be, here it would be one actually. And then the highest value, it takes that 17, and then it pops it in the highest value. Then it goes and, it says, okay, the lowest index, prices index for the lowest value is currently the lowest index. You want to put it in this variable here. And it just goes through, eventually it just does an if else, and it compares those values. And as you can see here, this is what I was talking about, where it's trying to compare the max price with the minimum prices, and then if it changes, if it finds that the minimum and max values change, then it reassigns them to those lowest and highest values. And afterwards, it goes through the for loop, and it does more or less this, a lot more comparisons with the current with for the price in prices. Is this price the lowest value? And the price index is less than the highest index. So if so, it takes that price and places it in the lowest value, and then it takes the index and puts it in the lowest index. Else, it does the opposite. It takes the price of the highest value and it basically pops it in there, and then it takes the highest price index and pops it in here, and then it returns the two at the end, which would pretty much give you 1 and 4 for this example.
Go up, Cisco.
I got a lot of print statements in here because I was, looking at my values as I'm going through each line.
Go down. Go down. Press its index. Go up. And max. Do you need line 2 and 4?
No, you don't need it. It just basically, I mean, you can take that and pop it, add it in here. It's just, I was just picking my, how should I put it? Picking my inputs to go off of to start with.
Why don't you just start with the first 2 elements?
Uh, well, I could, and I did initially start that way, but what I found more difficult to do is, as as you're going through it, I was having it to where it was giving me more values. It was giving me this value, but it was giving me additional values with it, like 2 or 3 more um, pairs, right, with it. And I had a hard time, and this is when I was working with Joe and Nicole. Is when I was finding out that it was just I couldn't figure out exactly why or where it was actually where to keep it from giving me those additional values. And I found this to be the easier way to do it, just because it kind of cut out all those extra pairs of numbers for us.
Okay, what's min under the hood? What's min and max under the hood?
Min max under the hood are, well, it's so this min function basically takes a list or
Just tell me what it is under the hood, bro.
yeah, it gives you the
No,
minimum
just
number.
tell me what it is under the hood. I know what it does. It's called min.
Okay.
What is it
Okay.
under the hood?
Loop.
Oh,
It's a loop.
yeah.
So you have 2 unnecessary loops that you're already looping over.
Okay.
Right. I'm guessing this passes all the test cases, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you, Cisco. I'm gonna try to see if I can explain it in a slightly more easier manner.
Okay. Let me stop sharing here.
I see what you try to do, and the idea is more or less right. You just don't need the max and mins at the beginning. You're going to iterate anyway.
Okay.
So for this challenge, what is it? I don't even know what it's called. Stock picker. Okay. What do you need to know for stock picker? Ultimately, it's asking you what to find what, and that's is really important here. It's asking you to find what?
Highest profit or highest gain.
Yeah. So, all right, let's grab this. And this is the kind of test case that they give you, right? Right, and it's asking you to find the max profit, right? So if I was to write this stock picker, I'm going to get some list of nums.
Oh, Guillermo, you're not sharing your screen.
Oh, oops. Sorry, sir. We'll take a break after this. Sorry, guys. It's kind of gone long here. Okay. You guys see it? Stock picker. All right, so you're gonna get some list of numbers, and ultimately you need to find what exactly?
Pair of numbers?
Say that again?
You need to find the pair that results in the highest profit.
Yeah, right. So you know you're going to have, right, day to buy someday. I don't know. Just gonna put 0 for now. I don't know. And someday to what?
So
Sell. Okay, I know I'm gonna have this. I'm just gonna put zeros for right now. And you're also gonna have what? What other variable I know that I'm going to have?
Max profit.
Yep, max profit. Now, I could put 0 here and continue with that, and that'd be fine for right now, right? But then when I start thinking, iterating, right, over this list of numbers for I in range length of list of nums, oh, this is, okay, comment all this out. Sorry. All right, when I start iterating here, and this is going to be my use case, right?
mhm.
I can actually set a default value to max profit initially. I know that I'm going to be iterating over what first two numbers.
17 and 3.
Yes, but as stock pickers go, I have to buy before I have to sell. So if I wanted to give a max profit, I would not subtract 17 minus 3. I'd do what?
You do
3 minus 17.
Yeah. Is this going to give me a negative number?
Yes.
Does it matter?
No, because it'll just continue looping.
Yeah, this is going to give me a negative number initially, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because eventually I know that I'm going to get a max profit. So it's fine if it's even negative, right? And it gives
Mhm.
me a good starting point because I'm starting with two actual values that are in there, right?
Okay. Mhm.
So I know that I am going to iterate, right? And the two-pointer idea, this is go, I don't know if we go over it. I think maybe in data structures, I think we'll go over different techniques for solving coding challenges. But this is a two-pointer problem, right? Where you're going to iterate one pointer, right, at the beginning, and then the second pointer is going to go what? If I have
Right.
one pointer on line 17, I'm going to have the very second pointer on where?
On the next one, on the line.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So on the very second one, right? So I know that this is going to be a nested loop solution, right? So I can do
Or
for
J.
j in range, line of list of nums. But what do I know about the inner loop?
Yeah. You know it's going to be one less than the outer loop than the one
One
above.
less or one more?
Plus 1.
Well, yeah, it's going to be one more. The length, I mean, is going to, you want it to be one less, though, right?
Not the inner loop, right?
Okay.
Not the inner loop. We're going to get into the outer loop here in a second. Is this? I mean, Cisco, you already said it, but yes, it's going to be -1. It's going to be -1 because the inner loop is going forward one. It's looking ahead one, right? So
Right.
actually, the outer loop can stop at 1, knowing that 10 is the last number,
Hmm.
right? So here, you're going to have one pointer at 17, one pointer at 3, right? And they're literally going to check every single combination, right? Every single combination, and this is a key thing here, listen up. They're going to check every single combination, right? And reassign a max value only when two conditions are true. What conditions are true?
If the so list nums I minus
You could
list.
make a temporary variable, like a just profit variable,
Yep,
and then
you could do
if
that.
Mhm.
that is higher than max profit, then you can put profit into max profit.
Yeah. So here you're going to check, and I'm just going to pseudocode it for you, right?
Mhm.
Uh, what is the price of sell day minus price of buy day? That
Mhm.
gives you the max profit, right? And then this is just becomes a simple check. If profit is larger than max profit, what do you do?
You
Then
place profit
max
in max profit.
Yeah, you reassign max profit to profit, right?
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
And here you also have to do what other thing?
You have to increase.
Not increase, but you have to reassign here. If this is true that we know that we found,
reassign data buy and data sell based on the values in the loop.
there you go. Roughly how you do it. And here it would be just a matter of there's another check, but here, but I'll just say return what you want a list, right? So just put it in a list. Return best day to buy, uh, best day to sell.
Mhm.
Notice how we don't return max profit at all. It didn't ask for that. It just asked, hey, what are the indexes of the day? Are the best day to buy and best day to sell to get the max profit? But this max profit variable in line 24 does something really important. It gives us this check for these three reassignments.
Mhm.
This is not an easy problem to solve early on. So this is definitely a stretch goal for you right now. If you didn't solve it, that's okay. Give it a shot later. Um, questions?
Yeah, well, you didn't code in the reassignment, right, of the by day? Or
No, no, I didn't. But I just left it for you guys. I can't give you everything. You're not going to learn much by me just coding everything out. You guys got to code, right? Like you guys got to got to learn. If I do one more for loop, it's not going to really help me get better, unfortunately. Alrighty, guys. Sorry that took so long. That went really, really long. Let's go ahead and take an 11-minute break. We'll be back at 7:10 and we'll start on today's lesson, okay? Pause. Alrighty. Today's Tuesday, April 22nd. This is week 3, day 1. The lesson is on currying and decorators in Python. And just like it says here, currying is a functional programming technique that allows you to reuse, and this is the key word here, reuse of more general functions. This is going to become a really important concept just in all of programming, the ability to reuse code. Um, can anyone tell me why that would be important? The ability to reuse code? I think we've touched on it before, but just as a reminder, because it's actually really important. It's the
Uh,
reason why you don't hard code anything.
I guess like when you're in a job and you have to, well, you have like the same problem over and over again, you can just keep using the same function, and then
Yeah,
its parameters will just adjust to whatever it's given.
yeah. And remember, if you ultimately need to change that function's functionality, how many places do you have to change it? One. Yeah. You go to that specific file, you change it there, and then it propagates to your application, right? So you wouldn't write the same functions across your application, because if you needed to change them, you'd have to go to every spot where that function is used and change it there, right? I'll give you kind of a pretty simple example I think everyone could probably understand. Have you guys shopped on Amazon before? Or pretty much, it doesn't have to be Amazon. It could be literally any website. You go to the checkout and it shows you the price and it calculates your taxes, right? And you just press checkout and you pay with whatever method. That basic calculator calculation on items and price, how many places do you think that that is in their code base? That's, yeah, one place, right? It has no need to be anywhere else. Even if they used that calculation on a different page, they just import it from wherever file it is and just use it, right? It's taking number of items, quantity, price, and it's doing basic arithmetic, right? No need to be anywhere else. All right, so currying. It is a partial kind of partial application. Partial application is basically a way to preload some of the function's parameters. This is somewhat of a hard concept to understand, but we'll see if we can walk through it. So let's look at an example. Hope it gets it's made a little bit clearer. Let's say we want to write a function to add zero padding to the number, right? To add a zero padding in terms of the prefix, right? We could straightforward write a regular function like so, right here. It says, hey, this function is going to take a parameter called slots, right? And it's going to take a number. You're going to take slots minus the length of that number, cast it as a string, right? Does anybody know what this function does? I don't know if we've run into it yet. It's taking the string 0 and it's multiplying it times diff. What does this do?
It's just duplicating or replicating that zero.
Yeah, it's replicating it X number of times, right? So when it says return string 0 times diff, if diff is 3, it's multiplying that 0 3 times. So it's giving you 3 zeros. If it's 10 times, it's giving you 10 zeros, right? In string form. And here is just a concatenation of number, right? They cast it as a string and then join it together, right? So this is the output right here. So if you call that function, it's called pad, and you pass in the number 3 and the number 78, you're going to get the string 078, right? But what if your application almost always uses 3 places? It might make your code easier to understand and maintain if we somehow subclass or specialize the pad function to be pad3. We can modify the pad and enable this. So here's something you may or may not have seen before, right? So the same function is still called, the outer function is called pad, and then the inner function, right, is called inner, right? And inner, notice, inner here is the same as what we did earlier. It's just going to pad it whatever number is passed in, right, with X number of zeros. Okay, cool. So now we can flexibly create as many subclasses or specialized versions of the pad function. So here, we pass in the integer 3 into pad, right? And that actually becomes the parameter slots, right? And then the new variable definition of pad3, we pass in 78, which becomes the parameter for the inner function, num, right? And this gives us the same output, the string of 078. That's actually the trick to the whole thing. Questions? You added functionality, right? You extended a function's functionality, right? by using currying. Is this that common? It's not as common as you would think, but it's good to be exposed to it just in case you ever see it. Currying. Now, decorators, on the other hand, is a second idea, and the idea is very similar, and this you'll see a lot. Decorators are used when you want to apply a modification to several other functions. Let's say you have an application that makes a bunch of financial transactions. One of the functions interacts with the database to record sell requests. So you'll have something like this. Sell, you get an asset ID of value, and it'll make some call to a database, right? And here it prints out just for the developer, hey, sell request recorded, cool. It might not make sense to control how many times a given transaction could occur. Let's say we only want to give the request to be made once. We can create a decorator that wraps, and this is a really important idea, a decorator that wraps the sell function and modifies how it works without directly changing sell, right? So this is similar to currying, right? But you're going to add what's known as a decorator, and we're going to get to that in just 1 second. So here, there's an outer function called once, right? And inside once, there's a variable that they've initialized to false, right? And in there, very similar to currying, right? There's an inner function that takes star args. What does star args mean? Does anyone know?
It's a it's a way to declare multiple arguments for a function.
Multiple parameters, but yes. You can declare as many arguments as you want. Star args, it's 0 or 7 if you want, 10, right? He'll handle them, right? And here's something you won't see very often, right? But you'll see it in this example. No local call, that means, hey, you can call local outside of the scope of this inner function. That's the only thing that it means, right? So the outer function can call it, right? And then here's just a conditional, if not called, right? Meaning that if it hasn't been called, false, right? I want you to go in here and call it true and then return, right? That function with the arguments, right? Now, if this fails, this is what's known as exception. It's going to raise this exception, right? So this code right here, an easier way to write it would be just to put a decorator on the sell function, right? So you're effectively wrapping the sell function in the decorator once, but that's just this, right? If you already declared that function, right? And most of the time you actually, when you assign decorators to functions, you'll typically import the library. A really famous one is caching, right? Python cache decorator. Let's see if I can find an example of this. Yeah, you'll import cache, right? For arithmetic that takes a really long time, or if you want to cache something from a database and not reach into your database again, if that same call has already been made, right? This is just adding functionality, cache functionality to factorial. That's how you see it most often, right? Python has has a really enormous ecosystem with a lot of libraries that are really awesome. So you'll probably import cached or any one of these libraries that have some kind of functionality, and then you'll throw a decorator on your function. So that's the most common way to see it. So this, just a version of this. Could you write this? Yes. But typically people would just put decorators. And if someone already wrote the code, that means you don't have to write it. You can just import the library and put a decorator on your functions and use it. And this is the output. Questions about currying or decorators? That's it. That's the lesson.
How common is are you going to be using this, I guess? Like,
You'll see this in big time applications quite a bit. You'll see them in classes. You'll see them in methods for classes across an application all the time, right? And the only thing you really have to check is just follow what the decorator is. You could what is it? command click on it, and it'll take you to that specific function or that specific import in your application, and you just look at what it does. You say, oh, okay, that's caching the result, or that's doing this, or that's limiting how many times I can change a database, or that has an exponential back off after an application call fails or something. So that's how you'll see it. So it's just added functionality to functions you've already written. It's just a clean way to do it, right? Why would you write this? This is hard to read, right? But if you read this, oh, I know, hey, it's going to check once. If it's selling, or if it's a cache or something, I know that that's caching something for faster retrieval on the next call. Right. And actually, the challenge that you have is actually pretty neat. I actually like this challenge. In Python, a decorator is just syntactic sugar, and you've heard that phrase from me before, for a function that returns another function. It allows you to write reusable functions that modify other functions, right? So not only can you reuse functions that you write or code that you write, you can also rewrite functions that you add to other functions, right? I know it's a little confusing, but that's kind of the idea. So write a decorator called only even seconds, and your decorator is not going to be called cache. It's not going to be called once. It's going to be called only even seconds, and some other function of your choice. It could be anything. I would just say just something simple that iterates over a list or something, or multiplies numbers and checks if it's even or something. When the function is decorated with only even seconds, your function should only execute if the current time in seconds it's even. Otherwise, it should do nothing. So if your program is executed at 10, 23, 55, for example, the original function should not be executed. So let's actually go over this so you're not completely lost. So let's go over just some pseudocode for this. All right, say you're given this challenge, even in seconds. How would you want to start this?
Uh, we'll define the first function,
All right, what function are you going to define?
even only even seconds.
Okay. Okay.
Or would you just name a decorator only even seconds and then write a function under that?
Well,
That
remember, right? Only even seconds is not an actual decorator that you can import from what I can tell. So you're actually going to just create it. Remember, imports modules are just code that someone else has written, right? But you could easily write your own library, right? Okay, so only even seconds is going to be a function here, and you're going to write it. What do you need here?
parameters in an argument.
Yeah, but no, you actually don't necessarily need that right now. How would you write this function? What is only seconds doing? This is your challenge here. So if I cut you loose, if I just open the breakout rooms right now and be like, all right, have at it, and you guys tackle this first, how would you do it?
We have,
Uh,
sorry.
oh no, you go for it. Right.
I mean, just in pseudo stupid code, like we have to give the parameter essentially like when we actually want it to execute. So in this case, when the current time seconds is even, otherwise return nothing or don't execute.
Okay, you're getting somewhere here. This is good. Okay, so we need to do what then? You're right. What does only even seconds check?
Um, I guess we would have to create like a modulus or like what's it called, modulus operator to calculate when the number is even versus odd.
Look at the challenge again. So it's a little confusing. This function, this decorator, should stop another function from executing if the number is not even, right?
Oh, we need to write another function.
Yeah, but the function can be anything, right? Like your other function can literally be just multiply, or whatever, right? It can be anything. This is an oversimplification for right now, right? But your number one function, the function that you want to execute is going to be almost anything, right? Just do something simple, I guess, or a loop or whatever function is simple. Really, the crux of the whole thing is your decorator. This is just another function, right? That eventually you're gonna decorate this with only even, right? It's gonna look something like this, right? What is the crux of the whole thing is only even seconds. It's that first function now. Well, what do we have to check? It's right there.
Just to see if the argument of the time given is even, and
You're
if it
not,
is,
there's not,
execute.
you can't, you're not going to give a time as an argument here, right? I think it wants you to check what? The actual time of the execution.
Oh,
So if that's the case, what do we need? What does only even seconds need?
is there even a way to check when it's?
Always, yes. So what does it need then?
Oh, shoot.
It's okay if you don't know what it is, but just tell me like what does it need? If you don't know what it is in terms of the module you're going to import, that's fine. But what does it need to know? Only even seconds needs to know what to do its job.
The time?
Yeah, it needs the time. Time now. It needs to know the time now because if it's even, I'm going to allow a multiply on line 60 to execute. If it's odd, then it can't execute. It needs to raise an error or return, hey, time is odd or seconds are odd, can't execute. So it needs to know time now. There you go. That's the crux of the whole thing. So find out how a function can learn what time it is, right, when it executes, right? Time now. And if time is even, if seconds of time now is even, do what?
Decorate.
There's going to be decorated anyway. Let,
Run the function
yeah,
multiply.
let multiply execute properly. That's it, right? Figure out how you can find the exact time a function executes, right? Check the seconds. You can split it, or you can do whatever you need to do, right? Check if the seconds is even or odd. That's going to involve a modulus, right? Uh, check if uh, time seconds even or odd, or if there's another way to do that. I don't know. There might be another way, right? And then if even, you let execute. If not, yeah, you block it, or you throw a string error or something. Make sense? Yes. That's rough pseudocode. Boom. Alrighty. I yacked it up way too long. All right, I'm going to open the breakout rooms. Feel free to go in there. Have any of the other instructors let you work in pairs? I'm sure they probably have. They love groups. Feel free to work in pairs if you would like. I will open the breakout rooms. Meow.
Gemma, would you mind putting that skeleton back up? I would like to screenshot that, if that's okay.
I will throw my chunky pseudocode in the pre-work channel.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Uh, Gemma,
A lot of thinking.
were we supposed to import the time or the date time?
Daytime was the answer.
Ah, okay. Yeah, we got some when we imported time, we got a return of like seconds since the last epoch or something like that. So
Okay, yeah, it was daytime. Did anyone finish it by chance?
I think I did.
You want to walk us through your solution, Nicole?
Sure, give me a second. Can you see this, or do I need to make it bigger?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so I kind of did it a little bit backwards than what you see here because I wrote the if statement first, kind of. So I wrote it out like, well, first I just kind of looked up Geeks for Geeks how to import the time, the current time, and it told me you put import date time, and then to pull it you use datetime dot datetime dot now. And then at the bottom of that, it kind of told you how to pull like year, month, day, stuff like that. And so it was current time second. So, hold on, what's going on here? There it is. Wrong spot. So, I got a little bit stuck here because I at first completely forgot about the second function. So every time I ran it, it kept getting errors. But when I went back to the page, I saw that you do it with this. So I just named my second function time check, and it's going to import the whatever argument it is. And then, so I'm checking for the current time, and then it's if my current time in seconds is even. I remember that from the other day where we did a modulus 2 equals 0 is even. We're going to return my function down here, which is just dog age. So it's number times 7 essentially. And then if not, uh, it's just going to return none. So when I go down here and uh, is that it? Eventually it gets the actual number. Um, but I kind of definitely got stuck because I also finished this and then forgot to return this function. So I had to finish this one and then add another return here to return this function for only even seconds. And it kept giving me an error for a while until I realized that.
Good. Nice job, Nicole. This is the right answer.
Mhm.
Super important thing here. Look at line 18. It returns the function. Remember, your only even seconds must return the function. And when it returns the function, it actually returns one of the returns, either line 15 or line 17. She put that, hey, if it's not even, just return none. Perfectly fine. But if it was even, look at what it returns. It returns the func, which is the parameter of the outer function. And that's what it needs to do. And it's always asterisk args because why is it asterisk args? Can anyone explain that? We touched on it a little bit. And Nicole, if you know the
Uh,
answer, feel free to.
Um, Go ahead, Adam.
um, because date time doesn't have three values.
You're kind of walking around the answer, not quite.
Is it because the star is like a wild card?
Yeah, it can be 0 parameters or it can be 10 parameters, right? So the function look at dog age, it happens to be 1, but if it was 5, it still worked. You don't know. Well, you do know, but this makes it really flexible, right? It makes your only even seconds work on a dog age function that takes one parameter, or what was mine? I think I wrote, oh, multiply. But multiply, I passed in two numbers. But star R's would still work. Make sense? Because so you're returning that function and it doesn't matter. Give me 0 parameters passed in or give me 10. Doesn't matter. It's going to work. It's going to account for that. Right? So good. This is great. This is exactly what you're supposed to do. Good job. Any questions about that one? The most important thing from that is just the concept, right? Of decorators is really important because you'll see decorators a lot when you write big applications. This idea that a function can return a function, this idea that the function can take a function as a parameter, right? It can return a function. And ultimately that we'll cover it later on in the curriculum. It's because that joke that I made before is that they're all objects, right? So you can pass a function as a parameter to another function, and it can return a function. It can combine it with another function. It can call a function within a function, take a function as one of the parameters to those functions, and then return another function completely different. Questions about that? Alrighty. So that was pretty straightforward. Any specific questions about that one or any of the stuff that you've covered last week?
Guillermo, I may have missed that, but would you explain line 22 on Nicole's solution? That number dot sub return number dots times 7?
Give me 1 second. I just messed something up. Hello? Hello? Say something, someone.
Howdy, howdy, howdy.
Okay, say something now.
Check, 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 check.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, like when I touch, I don't know all the buttons on my headphones, and sometimes it like mutes and it like disconnects or something. I don't know. Anyway, you were saying Art, sorry.
Yeah, I just need an explanation again on line 22 of Nicole's solution where it says return number times 7. What is that doing?
Nicole, you share your screen and explain it.
It's line 22.
Do you see it, Art?
Yeah, we can see it.
So all I did here is like the old like every dog year is 7 years essentially. So you would import, I guess I should have like named that like years or something or regular years because it's just gonna times it by 7 and return it. So whatever age your dog is, and like my dog is 8 years old in human years, I could put it in and it would be 8 times 7. So it would just output 56. He's an old man. He's 56.
Oh, okay. It was a dog thing. I thought it was like a Python thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was just I mean, I don't think that's very accurate. I think they've disproved that, but I think it's like they age, depending on size, they age differently, but I didn't feel like trying to figure out how to write that in code to make it the whole function. So I just used 7 years per 1 year.
Yes, it's closer to like 10 or 12, something like that, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's like 10 or 12 for the first year, and then it like varies based on weight of dog and like size to actually how they age. But I was just I didn't want to try to figure out how to do it that way at the moment. I was kind of spent at least a good like 30 minutes or so, a little bit longer, trying to just get the only even thing to work. So I just wanted a simple function there.
Thank you.
Give me 1 second, guys. I'm doing this right here. Any other questions, guys? So that was pretty straightforward. Um, Saturday stuff, two of them were pretty straightforward. You're going to work on stock picker. I would give stock picker another shot if you didn't get a chance to solve it. That's a pretty popular technical question that people get pretty frequently. Cisco, you already solved it. Everyone else hasn't solved stock picker, right? I would give stock picker another chance, right? See if you can do it based on the code that we wrote earlier. I'll go ahead and post it in the channel. Actually, I think I have it here. Let me see. Do you want me to post it or you want to try from just memory?
Post if you don't mind.
Okay, I'm going to post it in the question channel and we're going to give that one a chance. Yes? Okay, and after we come back, we'll go over that briefly and then I'll go over passing functions as parameters to other functions. Hopefully that'll solidify this idea of decorators. Alrighty, give that a shot. Open all rooms. I'm going to go over a quick little thing before we go over stock picker. This is the thing that I kind of wanted to show you. Can anyone tell me what my answer is going to be on line 82? What's the answer on line 82 when I run my function? Come on, guys. We need something. What do you guys got?
This is
Let's see.
difficult because param or subparam haven't been defined, and no one, you're not like pushing anything into them.
I think they're defined by each other, and I think it's doing 7 times 7. Is it just 49?
It
No?
is 49. Nice job.
Okay. I was overthinking completely.
It's 49. But can you explain to me why?
It's kind of like throwing it back and forth. So we have at the
It's not
top.
kind of like software is not like that. It's not kind of like what is
No, it
it?
is. It is throwing around. Let me
Stop
see.
throwing around. Be better with your words.
Passing it?
There you go. Better.
Yeah. So we have some function and the parameter is param. Then it's you're going to return the parameter times 7, and that is param. And the argument given oh my gosh, I lost myself. I had it for a second and I jumbled myself up.
Close-ish. Anyone else? He gave you the answer.
What's probably happening is that the prem is becoming times 7, and then you have another 7 down here, so you're doing the times 7 times
You
7.
could have easily guessed, right? I'm showing you 10 lines, right? If I show you an application of 1,200 files, you're not going to be able to do that, right? It's going to take you weeks to even figure out how the data is flowing. Here you can kind of do it, right? Because you see 2 7s, maybe they're multiplying, maybe, right? That's why I'm asking you to explain it. That's the important part here. The 49 is but a minor footnote. I need you to tell me what's happening here. Let's start at the bottom. I have a print statement over a function call called some other function, right? That's line 82. Cool. So I'm calling a function called some other function, and I'm passing it the argument of some function, except that the argument here is a function called some function. Okay, let's go to some function on line 72. That's what's being passed into some other function. If I look at some other function, it's taking some param, and that number, it's multiplying it by 7. Okay, so some param here is actually a function called some function, right? That returns param times 7, right? Okay, that's what some param becomes. I missed a typo here. Param. That's what it becomes in here, right? So when you call some param, right, and you pass it this argument of 7, param becomes 7. Now new var holds 49 and it returns 49. What does this prove? This proves that an argument can be a function, right? That you can pass a function as an argument to a function. Can you do this almost an unlimited amount of times? Unfortunately or fortunately, yes. And it gets a little bit more, but this concept is really important to understand, right? This idea that pretty much everything in object-oriented programming is a object, right? That you can pass as an argument, as a parameter to other functions, right? You can return functions because they're just objects. You can return strings because they're just objects. You can return integers because they're just objects, ultimately. That's where the name comes from, object-oriented programming. And this is actually a really, really important design principle in software engineering. Once you get the classes, right? They call it dependency injection, where whatever that class specifically needs to function, you pass it as a parameter. And can you pass a class into another class? Absolutely, yes. And can that class have properties and methods attached to it? Absolutely. Questions about this concept? This is just a small introduction to it, but I would need to show you this because it kind of goes along the lines of kind of what we're learning here.
In
And
a
this is
way,
kind of how
is it
you
almost
go ahead, Adam.
oh sorry, yeah. In a way, is it almost like making an entire function into a variable where it just kind of like holds a value?
Kind of, yeah. That's a very crass way to describe it, but yes. Right, with that variable name is almost it's not almost, it's pointing to a function in memory that can be executed upon the proper invocation of that call, right? So here's the thing. Look at line 19. The fact that I could do this tells me that I know what some param is, right? Depending on its context, some param could have been hello, in which case line 80 makes no sense at all. Why?
You can't multiply hello by 7.
Yeah, but some param is not a function. It's a string. Can't call it and pass it a parameter, can you? It's not that kind of object. It's an object, it's just not that kind of object, right? In simpler forms is when someone has some string, right? And then they do push or append something. What's wrong with line 82?
Something is in a string.
You know, some things is a string, and strings are what? Can you append to a string?
Mutable.
Yeah, they're immutable, right? Append is for mutable data types, something like a list, right? So this wouldn't make any sense at all. All right, so when you read code and you look at it, you need to, all this has to come into your brain and you have to be processing it to understand how things work, right? But because a simple misunderstanding of what something is, right, destroys the entire application or destroys your entire understanding of how something works. Right, and sometimes applications get really big. You'll do like command and then you'll click on it and it'll take you exactly where that function is. And you're trying to figure out what's that function returning because I don't seem to understand. And then you read it, okay, it's returning a dictionary with certain key value pairs. Okay, it's throwing an error because the value that I'm looking for is not in that dictionary. Okay, I understand that now. Right? So there you go. I can just Control Z. Super important thing to understand. Cool. How do we do on, let's stop sharing. How do we do on stock picker? Did we all get it? All right, we got 1, 2. Joe, ideas, thoughts?
Negative. I went down a rabbit hole. Like,
Which one?
I just was looking at like looking through loops and stuff like that. And I was just deep down a rabbit hole for a while.
About loops?
Yeah.
Okay. Nicole, how'd you do? Nicole? Yeah, I called you name. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I kind of got stuck in the 4i range and 4j in range.
What you get confused about?
Um, I was just getting confused because I was trying to store my uh results. So I got it to output like if I is like so if the first value is bigger than the second value, and then we're gonna find like what the profit is, so what the difference is. And I got it to print it out with like if it's bigger, it saves that, but trying to get it to save because I was trying to save it into like a dictionary or something to save the 2 days and the value, but it wasn't letting me do it.
Okay,
So I was having
gotcha.
I was having issues with that, and then so I was trying to figure because I was trying to just save it like that instead of in I think I originally had it like three different variables, so I was trying to put it together so I could connect the dots.
Gotcha. The 3 variables are going to be the easiest
Okay.
because something really important is you only have to say the start, stop, if the max value is bigger than whatever your current max value is that you get from the original two numbers. That's it.
Okay.
So you save those values only if that condition is true. And obviously if the buy day comes before the sell day, right? Because that's the only way it counts.
Okay.
So try that again. Nested loops are actually relatively common in
Mhm.
coding challenges. So make sure that you understand that and why it works. When we get to data structures, we'll talk about a couple patterns, sliding window, pointers. There's a couple other ones that we'll touch on, and just basic ways to solve pretty common coding challenges. And the two-pointer approach is very popular. It's what you just got in Stock Picker, even though they didn't introduce it.
Okay.
I'm gonna share one more thing with you to kind of show you this approach a little bit without kind of going too deep into it. Uh, what's a palindrome? Can you guys see my screen? Iceman?
Yeah.
Is Iceman a palindrome? No, 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 no. Race car, evil olive, olive, evil olive. Yeah, that's a palindrome. Okay. All right. If I told you write a function, right, that proves a string is a palindrome, how would you write it? So these are all examples of, well, the first two are palindromes, the second one isn't. Right? If it's a palindrome, like always, return true. If it's not a palindrome, return false. How would you do this type of problem?
Couldn't you just take the argument and then do that dot dot I to reverse it and then compare it to the original argument?
Yeah, you could do that. Is palindrome, and then you could just take some str, snake casing because it's Python, right? Yeah, you could actually. You could just return some str, and you already know the shortcut, right? And you could just compare it to some str, right? Start at the beginning, go to the end, and go backwards. That works. That tells me if it's a palindrome, right? What if I told you, hey, that's really awesome, but we're going to deal with strings that are a million characters long. This is going to take a lot of compute, not very optimal. What's a better way to do it?
Dot reverse.
It kind of has the same problem. Ideas. This is one of the ones where you could actually use a two-pointer approach, right? And I'll leave you this one for you to mess with it. If you want to practice a two-pointer, here's a good one, right? I'm going to use two pointers. I'm not going to use the built-in reverse methods because they're not very efficient. Right? I'm not going to use dot reverse because that suffers from the same problem. If I told you, hey, you could solve this using two pointers, which is what they expect you to use on, honestly, this was a slightly better problem to give you. It's a little easier than stock picker. If I wanted to use two pointers here, how would I do it? What's a palindrome? Just think, what's a palindrome? It's a string that's what? Or a word that's,
It's the same forwards and backwards.
yeah, that's it. That's a palindrome. Okay, so we're using two pointers. We're going to use one loop. How do we prove that a string passed into this function is a palindrome using two pointers? We can do what? We know that that word is the same backwards and forwards without reversing it, because that's going to take too much compute. We can index and we can do what?
Um, Compare the first character to the last one and then keep going backward, going towards each other.
Yeah. Check first character of string and check last character. If the same, keep going. If at any point they are not the same, breakout, return false. Can't be a palindrome, right? Gets to center of string, regardless if string is even or odd, right? Means it's a palindrome. Breakout, return true. This is a giant optimization. Let's look at it with race car. We're going to check R and the last one, right? So it'd be what? String length -1. So you check the first one, string length -1. They both are. Cool. Keep going. Subtract both pointers, right? By 1 each time. You increment the front one, you decrement the back one. You go to the next one, A, cool. C, cool. If there's only one character, it doesn't matter what that character is if it's odd. It's a palindrome. And if there's two characters and they're both the same, it's still a palindrome. That's it.
That would take more code to write, but then the computing is more efficient.
Yes.
Is that common?
I guess
Yes. Very
it's
common.
it takes less compute because it can time out sooner, right?
What do you mean timeout
Like
sooner?
if it notices that the first or the second or the third, if you were computing like we're looking to find like a string of 1 million characters, just hypothetically, if
Uh-huh.
it notices at character two that they're not the same, then it's gonna return false. It's not gonna have to go through the entire
That's
thing, right?
yeah, that's definitely part of the reason, but even if he had to finish the string, it'd still be significantly more optimized than this, right? Because read this to me. This is a string. What is this doing? By the same token, reverse and join would be doing the same thing. What is this doing on line 91?
It's comparing the argument.
No, just the highlighted part. What's happening under the hood here?
Oh, it's reversing the argument.
Yeah, but you can't reverse a string. So what's happening under the hood?
It's creating a new string.
How?
Um, because it's forcing where you have the brackets, it's basically telling it to iterate through and create a new string in there to compare it. I'm not sure if that's a
Character by character, right? It's
yeah.
creating a new string, character by character, going backwards. If the string is 1 million characters, it's going to concatenate 1 million characters. Not very efficient. I actually didn't write this code. Give it a shot. Any last minute questions, guys, before we wrap up? I know we only got like 5 minutes. I think class wraps up at 9:20. I don't know. I always thought it was 9:30. Um, any last minute questions or things for the good of the group, guys?
Oh, so determining that it's concatenating, you say like do like 1 million characters. Does that just come with time, just knowing what the program does, or is there something specific that like tells you that happens?
It kind of comes down to understanding how programming works and kind of peeling back the layer of why something works the way that it does. Right, but that all always comes with time, but just coding and Googling things and reading W3 schools and figuring out how things work. Remember, like maybe last week I showed you that in and in, and in a list in Python is an iteration, where in a cross check to a dictionary is actually a direct check on that specific value in memory. I didn't know that. I ended up looking for something and I was like, wait, so is that a loop or is that just direct access? Because one of them makes it way more efficient than having to loop. And I found it on like one of the Python web pages. I didn't know that, but just with time, all of that will come. But I only bring those things up is because that's kind of the level of intimate understanding you must know to be a good programmer. Especially, and this is the things they don't tell you guys when you change careers into programming, it is hard. It's hard to be really good. It is tough. Um, yeah, because it's just so big. It's the field is almost so intractable. It's really hard to be good. Art,
Did you get a response on when to submit the assessment?
yes, and I got it hours ago. Please submit your assessment by the end of the class. Sorry, guys. I should have told you that literally 3 hours ago. Thank you. Sorry about that. If you haven't, please push but before you go to bed. I'm sorry about that. That's on me. I'll make sure that Jordan knows. I'll post right after this that, hey, I just I told him like 9:28. That's okay. It's not that serious. Push it but if you already pushed, you're good. But if you haven't pushed right now, and I'll post it in the chat to make sure that they're aware. It's my fault. Sorry about that. Any other questions, guys? I had one more thing for you, and I can't remember exactly what it was. Oh, I remember. Because golf graduated today, dude. Uh, definitely pace yourself. Definitely study hard. But I guess the most thing is just have some have a little bit of endurance. 28 weeks is long, man. That's why I think this program is a little harder than the full time. It's just long, especially when you're working full time and going through this. It's a little bit of a beatdown. So hang in there. Out of anything I've ever done, I think learning a program is probably the highest ROI thing you can do. Uh, because you learn more or less for free. You don't need a college degree. The upward mobility is high. So it's very few. I actually I can't think of a single job that you can do that. Right. So even if you're just an okay coder, it's better than being a pretty decent truck driver, I guess. I don't know. That sounds hard. No shade on truck drivers. All right, guys. Have a wonderful day, guys. I'll go ahead and let Jordan know that I screwed up with the time.
Catch you later. Thanks.
Bye.